What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Tech and Tactical. And today we have my first Artisan Cutlery knife. These knives are, or this company, I should say, is putting out just one crazy design after another. And I had to grab one. And I think, this is the Interceptor. And this in particular is kind of just one of the neatest looking knives that I've seen in a while. And it also checks some of the boxes of what's important to me in a knife. For instance, I have to be able to switch the pocket clip. That's very important to me. The fact that it's D2 is cool, so it's a pretty good steel. Really love that harpoon design, but we're gonna get to that here in a second. All right, what is it, and what is it? What versions is it available in? Like I said, it's one of these new Artisan Cutlery knives, and it's available in like a stonewash blade, just like this, in quite a few different colors. You can get it in this black, like this. You can get it in orange. You can get it in, I've seen a green, and then you can get the same knives with a black coated blade, which is actually a pretty good idea for D2 if you live in a very wet environment. You might want to get one of the coated blades. So, steel, blade shape, pocket clip, etc. Steel I've already touched on. It is D2. You can see right here, serial number D2, made in China. These are Chinese-made knives. The blade shape is a harpoon, I suppose. It's a harpoon tanto edge, which is really cool. I think it's a wicked looking blade. Kind of a high saber, but there is a compound grind. There's two different grinds on there. Does have a really nice sharpening choil back here, and this really neat harpoon. It's got like a kind of a neat fuller along it as well, and then this cutout that I guess you can use to flip it, but it's got a flipper on it, so that's how you would deploy the knife, in my opinion. And then let's do some specs real quick, and then we'll go from there. All right, as you can see, this is actually quite a large knife. Overall length looks like it's just under 9 inches. So this is not a small knife. The blade length actually appears to be 4 inches too. I mean, it's quite a long blade, and it's also quite a long handle. So the handle is like 5 inches long. I have large size hands, and I've got room to spare. There's a couple different ways that you can grip this thing. If you were going to do like a self-defense, you could bring it back and get some more reach, or you can choke up. You can pinch grip it up high. That's how I use knives a lot. But it's very comfortable in all the different grips. So let's weigh it. I know a lot of these Artisan Cutlery knives are quite heavy. That's kind of one of the complaints that I've heard. But this one is under 5 ounces. 4.34 ounces. I don't know if you can see that. 4.34. Sorry, I'm moving the camera around here. So yeah, it's not a light knife. But, for the size, it's not a small knife either. So I think for the size, I would say that it's reasonable. It's a reasonable weight for the size, considering just how big this thing is. Honestly, when I was looking at this thing online, I didn't even know it was as big as it is. I was picturing something smaller. But I do like larger blades, like full-size folders. I'm not a big fan of really small ones, so I do like the size. I wouldn't steer you away from it if you knew what you were getting into. All right, let's talk about use case for this thing. What is it? What are you going to use it for? I don't know. I would say EDC, probably. It is a pretty sturdy, well-built knife. So you could use this for relatively hard use. It is a liner lock folder, so you shouldn't baton with it or anything crazy. But I'd say EDC would be a good use for it, but it is big. So, you got to know that what you're getting into there as far as use is concerned. But assuming you like a large blade, as I said, you probably would like this one. Fit and finish wise, it's actually quite good. Everything's lined up nicely. I like to give you guys some good shots. That's one of the things I like to do on my channel, is really give you guys a great look. So there are steel liners, but they're milled out. You can actually see through them. The handle's milled out too. Kind of a neat G10. I'd say medium grip G10. All right. So yeah, use case I'd say for this one's probably EDC. Kind of general use, but it is rather large. You got quite a piercing tip too. I'd say this is really good for puncturing. It comes to a very aggressive tip. Really a neat grind on this thing too. All right, jimping, blade play, centering, etc. The only jimping that I see on this whole knife is right here, and it's really mild. You can barely feel it. This is not aggressive jimping. And then there's a little bit of jimping on the thumb tab, on the flipper tab, I mean. But again, you can barely feel it. It's not all that functional. I'd really like to see better jimping here. Something with a little bit more traction. Other than that, there's no jimping on the knife at all. Blade play, there is none. Nice solid lockup. So no blade play on it. Centering is pretty much perfect. Right down the middle. So centering is good. Hand feels great. I really like every way you can hold this knife. I think it's got a really good hand feel to it. I like it. I like the feel of the knife. Lockup's pretty good. Yep, pretty good coverage there. So, and then the hardware is pretty cool too. You got a proprietary piece right here, but the back is a Torx. They did fix that, thank goodness. Some of the earlier Artisan Cutlery knives were that on both sides, so it would require a special tool, but this does not, because of what they did on the other side there. So I do like that as far as that goes. So let's take out some other knives, do a size comparison, and then I'll show you the box. So here's a size comparison with two other knives I really like, and you can see just how big this thing is. So there it is next to the Link. This is actually the Lincoln M390. If you haven't seen my review, take a look. M390. And then here it is next to one of my other favorites, the Spyderco Manix, which is not a small knife. You can see how big this thing is. It really, or I should say long, it really is quite long. And then as far as what came in the box, let's get these out of the way. Here's the box they come in. Box is really nice. A lot of brands come in, almost nothing. They come in either just like a pretty basic box with nothing in the box, even Kershaw. This is actually a pretty nice sturdy box that it comes in. And then it does come with a little baggie you can keep the knives in or something else. And then it comes with a little card in there too. So you can kind of see what's on the card. I don't know why they put that in there. I mean, it's got a ceramic ball, detent ball, but I don't know that means, I don't think that means that it's ball bearing as far as the pivot. I think that just means the detent ball, which I'll try to show you real quick, is ceramic. So I don't know how big of a deal that is or how that really matters, but so the detent ball is in there. I'm gonna have trouble showing it to you. So you can barely see it down in there. There it is. So there's a ceramic detent ball. And they did an okay job, but I mean, that's pretty far forward, the detent ball. So you've got to get it to there to break the detent ball. Once you break it, it's got really good action. Let me back the camera up a little. It does have really good action, but this leads me to what I don't like. Actually, let's do this in order. So cost value first. Cost on these things is mid to upper 50s. And there's a lot of different configurations. They actually go up quite a bit from there. But the D2 G10 version, the one you're looking at, is like high 50s. So I think it was like 59 is what these cost. If you're buying them retail. It does have a deep carry pocket clip. And the clip is pretty good. I do like the feel of it. And of course, like I said, it's reversible. It has to be. I don't really buy knives unless you can flip the clip. There are a couple of exceptions. So let's talk about pros and cons. Pros, I really like the knife. I think that blade shape is just totally cool. I do like the stonewash finish on it. I like the design. I like the grind. There's one, a couple more pros. I really like the feel of the handle. I really like the action as far as opening it. So it does have good action as far as opening it. And I like that it has a deep carry clip, and I like the price. I like the steel. So there is a lot to like about the knife. So let's get to my major con. There's one flaw with this knife. And before I say what it is, it might just be this one. Maybe the other ones aren't like this, but I do not like how you release the lock. As you can see, that liner is like not sticking out. Let me get the link back out. So on the link, you can see that liner sticking out, so it's easy to find it and it's easy to operate it. It's also relatively smooth feeling. However, this is really difficult to move. Like, it takes a lot of pressure. Maybe, and I think that's got some lock stick on it, honestly. But it takes a lot of pressure, and it almost hurts to close this thing. Let me show you. So it really got to push it over, and then, that thing makes a divot in my thumb. Like, it is very difficult to break that liner. I think that the way it's designed, maybe, it just doesn't stick out. If there's a little bit more material sticking out right here, it would be a lot easier to use. But it really doesn't stick out at all. So you've got to like dig the tip of your finger. And you can see that weird kind of shape too. So you got to dig just the edge of your finger down in there. And as I said, it's very stiff. So, it downright hurts to use this. I actually have been using it left-handed because, believe it or not, it's actually easier to operate the liner lock with your left hand than it is with, well, at least for me. When I'm using my right hand, I end up two-handing it. I end up turning it and using my pointer finger to close the knife because it's so hard to operate that liner. So that is definitely a con for me. Like I said, it might just be this one. Maybe the rest of them aren't this bad. But that liner is really stiff. Now, I am hoping that it breaks in. Perhaps over time, this liner will become easier to use. But as it sits right now, it's a really great knife with a kind of a bad design as far as the liner lock is concerned. Because the thing is really sweet. The action's really great on it. Like once you break that detemp ball. Really good action. So yeah, I like it. I just, I wish that liner lock was a little easier to operate. That's kind of my big con for the knife. I said a couple of videos ago that I was going to start doing ratings from 1 to 10, kind of like my initial thought. And if I really like it, you guys have seen I do updates on knives too. So if I'm using a knife a lot and I really end up liking it, like I post an update like I did with the Mannix. This knife is just totally awesome, so it deserved an update. So, we'll see how it goes, but that liner lock is really kind of almost a deal killer for me. It's just so hard. Like there's no fidget. It's not fidget friendly because that liner lock is so difficult to disengage. So I don't like that. Hopefully, maybe they'll fix it in coming models. This thing did just come out. Normally I don't buy new knives, but I was able to get a really good deal because of, to review this thing. So, I don't I don't know. We'll see kind of how it goes. Let's cut some stuff and then we'll get out of here. All right, how sharp did it come? I don't know. Am I in frame? I mean, it's relatively sharp. I might give it like an 8 out of 10. That piercing tip is really impressive, though. You can see, I mean, this is just hanging paper that it digs into. So, as far as the piercing tip, it really does very well. But, you know, for overall sharpness out of the box, I'd give it maybe a 7.5 or an 8. Oh, right. Sorry. I said I was going to give the knife a rating and then never did. I would give this knife, I'm going to give this knife a 7 out of 10, but I'm going to subtract a point for that liner lock. So I'm going to give this thing a 6 out of 10. I really wanted to love this knife because of how cool it is, you know, how cool it looks and the neat design. Also the flipper tab, this isn't really a con, it's just kind of a comment. The flipper tab's kind of weird, the way that it's the angle. Like the way that it's angled back like that, and then when you flip it open, it's angled forward. If it was straight, it would create a better finger guard, and it would also be easier to deploy. So I'm not really sure why the angle, you know, I guess form over function or whatever. You know, I guess it's more, the looks are more important than the function in this case. But I don't mean to give this thing a bad review. I do like these, and I think Artisan Cutlery is putting out some pretty neat designs. I've got my eye on a couple of other ones that they're releasing as well. So, you know, I like them. You know, I definitely would not steer you away from getting one. I just think that this one has kind of a major flaw with that liner lock. And I don't know how they can fix it. They would either need to change the design and bring some more metal out. Like if that went straight from there to there, you'd have that extra space. But the way it is now, it's too nested in there. You can't really access it very well. And then the fact that it's stiff kind of creates a bit of a problem. So, yeah, I appreciate you guys coming to another episode of Tech and Tactical. I will continue to continue to use this knife and then get back to you on thoughts. Oh, by the way, it's not an open design. It's actually got a backspacer. And there is like a little place for a lanyard too. So I don't know if I mentioned those. So yeah, thanks again for coming. Check out some of my other videos. And I do have some new stuff coming up too. I think it's been a couple weeks since I posted a video. You know, I had kind of a gap in stuff to review, but I've got a couple of new things to review. So keep an eye. Please like and subscribe. And thanks for coming. Later on.